You see a variety of vocabulary in this chapter. Now, if we were in class together right at this moment, we'd be listening to these read aloud. But for now, I'm just going to read these out loud to help you. So here at letter A, we see these two chicas who are talking. And the lady in the pink here says, Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hola means hello, and ¿cómo estás? How are you? Note that ¿cómo estás is the informal way of saying how are you. So, hola, ¿cómo estás? Hello, how are you? And she says back, bien, I'm doing well. ¿Y tú? And you? And this girl says back, she's mal. She is not good. She's bad. Mal. Okay, so again, you have all this vocab here to your right. Hola, hello. ¿Cómo estás? How are you? Informal. Bien, well. ¿Y tú? And you. And mal, bad. Now, of course, you have the Quizlets to help you study these vocab words, but it might not be a bad idea as you go through these videos to maybe make flashcards or something that's going to help you study for your quizzes, okay? So, notice they are kissing on the cheek in this video, or in this photo. That is very common in Spanish-speaking countries. You see sometimes a greeting, depending on the country, they may kiss only on one cheek, sometimes both cheeks. Sometimes it's just two women, sometimes it's a man and a woman, sometimes it's two men. It just depends on the country. So, interesting fact there. Here you see these two guys, and this is Juan in the green here, and then you see Miguel over here in the yellow, and Juan says, Hola Miguel! Hello Michael! Hola Miguel! ¿Qué tal? How's it going? ¿Qué tal? How's it going? Very informal greeting you might use with a friend. And Miguel says back, Hola, ¿qué pasa? Hey, what's up? Hola, ¿qué pasa? So you have ¿qué tal? How's it going? And ¿qué pasa? What's up? As we keep looking, we see Juan here talking to Ana. And Juan says, hasta luego, Ana. And Ana says, hasta luego. So hasta luego is see you later. Be careful with this word hasta. The H in Spanish is silent. That's why we don't say hola, we say hola. Same thing here. We don't say hasta, we say hasta luego, hasta. All right. In letter D here, we see señorita, casa. And notice SRTA is the abbreviation for señorita. Señorita means miss, an unmarried woman, Miss MS. So señorita Daza, and she's talking to señor, SR period, Mr. Ortega. So again, notice señorita is SRTA period, Miss, señor, SR period, Mr. And then a señora is a married woman, SRA period. So, for example, if you were thinking about maybe someone you're meeting for the first time who is a female, you're probably going to use señorita just to be polite in conversation. But if you found out later that woman were married, you would refer to her as señora. Okay, and then men are always señor. Pretty easy there. So, Señorita Daza says adios when talking here to Mr. Ortega, and Señor Ortega says back, adios, señorita, goodbye, miss. Here we get into some more greetings, and you can see this clock here with the time. It's pointing to 7 o'clock a.m. Senor Martinez says, buenos dias, Senora Ramos. So he must know that she's married because he called her Senora, Mrs. So buenos dias, good morning, Mrs. Ramos. And then he asks, ¿Cómo está usted? How are you in the formal way? So notice they're wearing suits. They're in more of a business context. They're trying to be formal with one another. So they said, ¿Cómo está usted? Using the formal register. Not to be confused with what we learned earlier, ¿Cómo estás? The informal way of asking, how are you? Okay, so Mr. Martinez says, good morning, Mrs. Ramos. How are you today? Mrs. Ramos, Senora Ramos says, regular. I'm all right. I'm normal. I'm okay. ¿Y usted? And you, formal? And Mr. Martinez says, más o menos, which literally translates to more or less. I'm okay, más o menos. We might also translate this as so-so. And I added the phrase here, así así, even though it's not in your book. I like así así, so-so. It's just a common thing you hear in Spanish. So, buenos dias, good morning. ¿Cómo está usted? How are you, formal? Y usted, and you, formal. The E, the little Y pronounced as E, means and. And usted literally means you, formal. So y usted and you, formal. Regular, normal or regular. Más o menos, more or less. And así así, so-so. Okay, as you keep going here in letter F, you see these two guys talking. This is Juan again, and he's talking to Esteban. And this time you see the clock and it shows that it is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So rather than saying good morning, he says buenas tardes, good afternoon. Juan asks, ¿Cómo estás? Again, how are you informal? They're about the same age. No reason to be formal here. ¿Cómo estás? And Esteban says, I'm muy bien. I am very well. So bien by itself, I'm well. Muy bien, I'm very well. All right, as you keep looking here, you see Señora Acevedo talking to Diana. And Señora Acevedo says, Hola, buenas noches. Hello, good evening or good night. In this case, they're greeting, so they're probably saying good evening. But you can also, as you say goodbye to someone, you can say buenas noches, goodbye or good night, as in a farewell, as if you're leaving a party. Okay, I'm leaving. Good night. Buenas noches. Same thing here, but in this context, it's good evening. So, Señora Acevedo, hello, good evening, and Diana, buenas noches, señora. Good evening, Mrs. Or good evening, señora. Okay. And finally, in letter H, Señor Garcia says, buenas noches, Diana. Good evening, Diana. And, or good night, maybe again in this case. And Diana says, hasta mañana, Señor Garcia. Hasta mañana. See you tomorrow, Mr. Garcia. Okay, so you see a lot of these things here. What we're going to do next is a little listening activity about greetings and goodbyes. Now, if we were actually in the classroom together, something that I like to make my students do, I like to make you walk to the front of the class when you hear a greeting, or walk towards the back of the class when you hear a goodbye. So on your own, I just want you to identify if these are greetings or if they're goodbyes. Okay, so you can do that however you like. You may raise your hand if it's a greeting or not raise your hand if it's a farewell. You get to choose. Just make sure you identify these as one or the other. Okay, let's give these a try.
Lección preliminar. A responder. Listen to these people greeting and saying goodbye. Wave toward the front of the room if you hear a greeting, or toward the back of the room if you hear a goodbye. 1. Buenos días.
Buenos dias. So you have to think about what buenos dias means. Hopefully you're saying good morning. So you're pointing or waving towards the front of your room.
2.
Hasta mañana.
Hasta mañana. So you got to think about what that means. Hopefully you're saying hasta mañana was see you tomorrow. You should be waving towards the back of your room. That's a farewell.
3.
Adiós.
Adios. We all know adios means goodbye. So you should be pointing towards the back of your room.
4.
¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal? All right, we know that ¿qué tal means how's it going, what's up? So that's more of a greeting. We should be pointing towards the front of our room.
5. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. Okay, so buenas tardes, good afternoon. In this case, that is a greeting. Should be pointing towards the front of the room.
6.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego. See you later. Back of the room. Okay, so you got to hear some listening here in this activity. One thing that I want you to do now on your own, this is an activity where you get to match up the phrases they're trying to say. These are the same vocab words you just saw. So here in numbers 1 through 5, you have the question, and then in A through E, you have some possible answers. So in number 1, we have ¿Cómo está? And you have to complete it. We should say ¿Cómo está? How are? And our best answer here is usted. How are you formal? ¿Cómo está usted? Okay, I want you to take a moment and I want you to pause this video and give numbers 2 through 5 a quick try. When you're ready, you can unpause and we'll go over the answers together. So go ahead and pause. All right, now that you have had a moment to try these, in number 2, it says buenas, good, and then you have to find the phrase that best matches here. So in this case, it should be buenas tardes, good afternoon, buenas tardes. So number 2 goes with D, buenas tardes. Number 3, ask us que blank, and the best option here was que tal, how's it going, que tal. You're just finding the words that match up from your vocab. Number 4 said muy bien, I'm very well. And then you might ask someone in response, and yourself, y usted, and you. And then finally, our last one, we have hasta mañana. See you tomorrow. Hasta mañana. So you're probably wondering about all this formal and informal stuff. And one of our learning objectives here is to differentiate between formal and informal registers in Spanish. So you already know about ¿cómo estás? How are you informal? And ¿cómo está usted? How are you formal? You also already know about ¿y tú? And you informal, and ¿y usted? And you formal. And you know that ¿cómo estás? And ¿y tú? Are informal. And you know that ¿cómo está usted? And ¿y usted? Are formal phrases, but you probably don't know how to use each one yet. So let's talk about it. These informal expressions, ¿cómo estás? ¿Y tú? ¿Qué tal? ¿Qué pasa? Any of those we're probably going to use with people who are our own age, right? I don't know about you, but when I meet someone else who's my age, I'm not like, well, hello, Mr. So-and-so, how are you today? Like, you're not super formal. You're like, hey, man, what's up, right? So kind of the same thing. You're going to be more informal with people who are your own age, other people in your class, for example, you would use the informal with. Now, in most cases, that is. You also might use an informal register with a relative. So when you're talking to your mom or your dad or your parents or brothers and sisters, you're probably going to use the informal greeting, right? You know each other very well. You're very friendly, most likely, so you're going to use an informal greeting. Anybody you call by their first name, you're going to use an informal greeting. So this can change. For example, when you meet your boss for the first time, you might refer to your boss as Miss Moore or Dr. Moore, right? But then as you get to know her a little more, you might call her Gina, or you might call her by her first name. So the register can change as you get to know someone. So let's hop over to these formal greetings now. As I said, you're going to use a formal greeting with strangers, people you don't know very well. And that can change. So maybe when you meet a classmate for the first time, you're a little bit more formal, but then you lighten up a little bit. You might also use a formal register with elders. So anytime I see an old lady in Spanish, I instantly am like señora or doña or señorita. Like you're immediately going to be more formal, and you probably don't call them by their first name. Same thing maybe with your parents' friends when you were growing up. You didn't call your parents. My parents' best friends were Beth and Chad, and I didn't call them Beth or Chad. I called them Mr. Corral or Mrs. Corral, right? So you're going to be more, a little bit more friendly in that respect. Okay, and then finally, you're going to use these formal phrases with a person to whom you want to show respect in general. So anybody that you're just not sure about, or you just want to make sure you're being polite, you're going to use a formal greeting. ¿Cómo está usted? Okay, so as we keep moving here, in this activity, you are given a few different people. You can see you have your best friend, the school principal, Mr. and Mrs. Lopez, your mother and father, so on and so forth. And then you're given a time. So in all of these, you have to decide first what kind of greeting you're going to use. Are you going to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening? And are you going to use a formal or an informal greeting? ¿Cómo estás? Or ¿Cómo está usted? All right, so as we practice here, in the modelo, the model, you have Señor y Señora Vargas, Mr. and Mrs. Vargas, and we're at 7 a.m. in the morning. So if it's 7 a.m., we're obviously going to start with good morning, buenos dias, as you can see here. And because it's Mr. and Mrs. Vargas, we're going to ask, how are you in the formal way, because we're not calling them by their first names. We're calling them Mr. Vargas or Mrs. Vargas. So, ¿cómo está usted in this case? Okay, let's do number one together. It says we're talking about your best friend, and then it's 10 p.m. Well, 10 p.m. we know is 10 o'clock at night. So I'm going to say good evening. You maybe remember good evening is good. Hopefully you're saying buenas noches. Buenas noches. And we're talking to our best friend, somebody I know well, so I'm going to use an informal greeting. So there I'm probably going to say, ¿Cómo estás? So we should say buenas noches. ¿Cómo estás? As our final answer. All right, I want you to try numbers 2 through 8 very quickly and give these your best attempt, okay? You can unpause when you're ready. All right, now that you've had a second to try these, in number 2, it says we're talking about our school principal. If you were talking about your school principal or maybe the dean of a college or something like that, you definitely want to show that person respect. You want to be respectful. And it's 2 p.m., it's the afternoon. So to say good afternoon, we're going to say buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. And we're going to use a formal greeting to show respect. So we're going to say ¿Cómo está usted? Okay, hopefully you're getting these right. Number 3, we're talking to Senor, Mr., or Senorita, Ms. Lopez, and it's 7 p.m. At 7 at night, we're going to say good evening, so we should say buenas noches. And again, we call them Mr. or Ms. Lopez, so it is formal. We did not call them by their first name, so it should be ¿Cómo está usted? Number 4, though, we're talking to mom and dad, our mother and father, and it's 9 a.m. in the morning. I don't know about you, we don't talk in my house that early in the morning, okay? But if it's 9 a.m., we're going to say good morning, buenos dias, and an informal greeting because we know these people very well, obviously. They gave birth to us, so it should be ¿Cómo estás? Number 5, Señor y Señora Santos, Mr. and Mrs. Santos, and it's 4 p.m. So in this case, 4 p.m., it is the afternoon. We're going to say good afternoon, buenas tardes. And again, we call them Mr. and Mrs. Santos, so we're going to use a formal greeting. ¿Cómo está usted? All right, I think you're getting the hang of this. For the others, I did want to point out on number 7 and 8, these could go either way. So number 7, it was 11 o'clock a.m., so it's morning, we had to say buenos dias. And number 8, it's 10 a.m., we also had to say buenos dias. Where it gets tricky is your coach. Some people, I would say most people, probably have a pretty informal relationship with your coach. So maybe when you first got to know him or her, you were very formal, Coach Brenninger, Coach so-and-so, and you used the formal form, ¿Cómo está usted? Because they're your elder, you want to show respect to them, so on and so forth. But as you get to know your coach and sort of establish more of a friendly relationship, that may change to be more of an informal greeting, ¿Cómo está usted? So I would take either one on that one. Kind of the same thing with your Spanish teacher. In general, you should always use your formal form with your Spanish teacher, ¿Cómo está usted? With any kind of elder or adult. But I always tell my students that you can use the two form with me. Me puedes tutear. So my students usually use ¿Cómo estás? Or the informal form. But again, these two could kind of go either way, depending on the situation and the person you're dealing with. All right, so I think you're getting the hang of that. We're going to move on past the greetings and introductions a little bit here and go into what we call mucho gusto, which means nice to meet you. So beyond just saying good morning, how are you, we're actually going to get to know someone just a little bit. And I'm going to make this full screen. Okay, so here our learning objective is to create sentences in Spanish, introducing oneself and others, and to demonstrate understanding of these greetings and introductions. So here in letter A, you see Esteban in the orange, and he is talking to his friend Diana, who is in the blue, holding the basketball. So Esteban says, Hola, me llamo Esteban, y tú, ¿cómo te llamas? So, hello, my name is Esteban, and you, what is your name? So, me llamo, my name is. And the question he asked was, ¿Cómo te llamas? What is your name? So if I were to ask you your name right now, I would say, ¿Cómo te llamas? What is your name? And you would reply back. Good, you would reply back, me llamo, and your name. So let's try one more time. ¿Cómo te llamas? Oh, okay. I would say, me llamo Matthew, and you would say, me llamo, whatever your name is. And then I'd probably say, mucho gusto, nice to meet you. In this case, Esteban replies back to Diana, and she says, encantado. Delighted, literally, or a pleasure, we might say, delighted, encantado. Now, be careful with this word encantado. Esteban is a male, so he's delighted. He said encantado, which ends in an O, because he's male. The O is masculine in Spanish, so encantado. If Diana were saying nice to meet you back, she would say encantada with an A, because she is a female. Okay, so one more time, a few words here. Me llamo, my name is. ¿Cómo te llamas? What is your name? We also see here encantado or encantada, nice to meet you, delighted. And then Diana says back here, igualmente, same here, or likewise. All right, so these are some common expressions you see here with mucho gusto. As we keep going down, now you see them in a group of people. And you see Esteban here, and then we still have Diana. And Diana says, well, te presento a Esteban. Te presento a, let me introduce you to Esteban. And this is Ana over here, and Ana says, oh, encantada. I'm delighted. It's nice to meet you. And notice she used an A because she's a female. And Esteban says back, igual, igualmente. Same here, likewise. Careful with this expression, te presento a. This is the informal way of saying, let me introduce you to. If you were talking to an elder, we wouldn't say te presento a. We would say le presento a, using the formal register. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, so again, in this case, we're seeing Señorita Machado talking to Señorita Daza, and they're seated here. Señorita Machado says, perdón, excuse me, pardon, ¿cómo se llama? And so obviously they don't know each other yet. So, excuse me, ¿cómo se llama? Excuse me, what is your name? ¿Cómo se llama? What is your name? And this is the formal way of saying it. Not to be confused before over here with ¿cómo te llamas? What is your name informally? Here we have ¿cómo se llama? What is your name in the formal fashion? And she responds back and she says, oh, me llamo Raquel Daza. My name is Raquel Daza. And as they continue, now Señorita Machado is talking to Señor Ortega and also to Ana. And Señorita Machado here in the pink says, le presento a Ana Vega. Let me introduce you to Ana Vega. And notice, since she's talking to Mr. Ortega, she's showing respect. So instead of te presento a from before, the informal way of saying let me introduce you to, she uses the formal form and she says le presento a. Let me introduce you to. In this case, Mr. Ortega says back, mucho gusto, nice to meet you. And Ana says, oh, el gusto es mío, the pleasure is mine. All right, and remember, these are all things you should be making flashcards for, okay, to remember these vocab words. All right, as we keep moving, you see a few other greetings. In this case, these two ladies are talking, and they're looking at this guy over here, and they say, ¿Quién es? Who is that? ¿Quién es? And they ask a question, ¿Es Raúl? Is that Raúl? Who is that? Is that Raúl? And she says, no, es Juan. Notice no is the same in both languages. No means no. ¿Quién es? ¿Es Raúl? No, es Juan. Nope, that's Juan. That's John. Es Juan. And again, you see the phrase ¿Cómo se llama? Unlike before when we use ¿Cómo se llama? To mean what is your name in the formal way, in this context we're using ¿Cómo se llama? To mean what is his or her name. So Juan is looking over here at this girl, and he says, ¿Cómo se llama? What is her name? And Esteban says back, oh, se llama Diana. Her name is Diana. Se llama Diana. Okay, and finally here in our last slide, we see Rosa and Esteban talking. And Rosa asks a question, and she's pointing over here to this guy in the yellow, and she says, ¿Se llama Miguel? Is his name Miguel? Literally, the statement says, his name is Michael. Se llama Miguel, and it has questions around it. His name is Michael? Question mark. And Esteban says, sí, yes. Se llama Miguel Luque. His name is Miguel Luque. So you have sí for yes and no for no. All right, I know that this vocabulary takes some time to learn, guys, so that's why you have the Quizlets to study. You can also make flashcards. That's one of the best ways to learn vocabulary is to make flashcards, so I strongly encourage that. Now, as we play around here a little more with mucho gusto, in this context, you're going to be listening to 4 different people who are making introductions. If you hear someone introducing themselves, I want you to point to yourself. And if you hear someone introducing another person, I want you to point off to someone else, if out into the room or whatever. So point to yourself if you hear someone introducing themselves, and point off into the space if you hear someone introducing someone else. Okay, let's listen to these.
Lección preliminar. A responder. Listen to 4 people make introductions. Point to yourself if you hear someone introducing themselves. Point to the person next to you if you hear someone introducing someone else.
1.
Te presento a Sonia.
Te presento a Sonia. Let me introduce you to Sonia. So in this case, we're introducing someone else. Who should be pointing off into space?
2. Hola, me llamo Ricardo.
Hola, me llamo Ricardo. Hello, my name is Ricardo. In this case, you hear someone introducing themselves, so you should be pointing to yourself.
3.
Me llamo Carolina. ¿Y tú?
Me llamo Carolina. ¿Y tú? My name is Carolina. And you? So in this case, you hear someone introducing themselves. We should be pointing to ourselves.
4. Le presento a la señora Vargas.
Le presento a la señora Vargas. Let me introduce you to Mrs. Vargas. So in this case, we hear someone introducing someone else who should be pointing off into space. I think there's one more. Nope. Okay, that was the last one. All right. Hopefully you feel a little better about mucho gusto. All right. In this activity, this is a writing activity, and this will help you with one of your homework assignments on Google Forms, okay? Remember, our learning objective is to create sentences in Spanish, introducing oneself and others, and to demonstrate understanding of greetings and introductions. So, in this activity, we see, ¿Cómo te llamas? What is your name? And you're supposed to choose the correct response to each question or statement. And I'm going to do one with you here, one for you. So, ¿Quién es? You may remember from before, ¿Quién es means? Good. ¿Quién es means who is that? Who is that? And your options are es Hugo, it's Hugo, encantado, delighted, pleased to meet you, or me llamo Carlos, my name is Carlos. Obviously, the best answer here for who is that would be es Hugo, it's Hugo. Okay, let's do one more together. Number 2, I listed it here as number 1, but it should be number 2. It says encantada, nice to meet you, encantada, delighted, pleased to meet you. And option A says, le presento a Sergio. Let me introduce you to Sergio. Option B, y tú, and you. Or option C, igualmente. Same here, or likewise. So when someone says nice to meet you, same here, likewise. It's nice to meet you too. So it should be letter C. All right. Now I want you to take a moment and pause your audio, and I want you to give numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6 a try. Okay, now that you've had a second to try these, number 3 says, te presento a Joaquín. Let me introduce you to Joaquín. And option A was, ¿Cómo se llama? What's her name? Or B, mucho gusto, nice to meet you. Or C, igualmente. Hopefully here we're saying mucho gusto, it's nice to meet you. Number 4, ¿Cómo te llamas? What is your name? Option A, perdón, excuse me. Option B, me llamo Isabel. Or option C, bien. Obviously B is the best answer here. Me llamo Isabel. My name is Isabel. Number 5, me llamo Gabriel. My name is Gabriel. Gabriel. Option A, igualmente. Same here, likewise. Unless your name is also Gabriel, you should not say that. Option B, encantado. Delighted, nice to meet you. Or option C, el gusto es mío. The pleasure is mine. Okay, and then number 6, we see mucho gusto. Nice to meet you. Your options are buenas tardes, good afternoon. ¿Quién es? Who is that? Or C, el gusto es mío. So nice to meet you. The pleasure is mine. All right, hopefully you're feeling better about these vocab words. Something else you may be asked to do is to complete a conversation. So you'll see here, Carlos is having a conversation with Beatriz, and Carlos says, hola, me blank Carlos. Blank te llamas. So here in this first sentence, hola, me blank Carlos, he's trying to say my name is Carlos. So we would fill in that blank with, hola, me llamo Carlos. And he asked blank te llamas. He's asking for her name. So in this case, to ask what is your name, he should say, ¿Cómo te llamas? ¿Cómo? All right, I want you to take a moment and pause your audio and fill in the rest of this conversation with the vocab words that we've been learning in this video. When you're ready, you can unpause. Okay, now that you've had a second to try, here Beatriz responds back, so hello, my name is Carlos. What is your name? ¿Cómo te llamas? She responds back and says, me llamo Beatriz. And this is where it gets kind of tricky. After that, you have a lot of multiple answers that could be right. So here, in response to my name is Beatriz, Carlos says back, well, mucho gusto, Beatriz. Nice to meet you. Or he could say, encantado. I'm delighted to meet you, Beatriz. Notice he said encantado and not encantada because Carlos is a male. And then Beatriz says back, she could say igualmente, same here, likewise. So she could say, el gusto es mío, the pleasure is mine. Both of those are perfectly correct. All right, so I want to take one moment here just to note, again, you see the differences in the familiar and formal forms, the informal and the formal. So we had como te llamas and te presento a, which were informal. And then we have como se llama and le presento a, which are formal expressions. Don't forget those. Okay, this next subject is one of my absolute favorite things to teach in Spanish. And so in this case, we have several different learning objectives. We want to be able to recite the Spanish alphabet. You should be able to demonstrate understanding of Spanish phonetic sounds. And I'd like for you to combine these greetings and introductions with the alphabet in order to spell your name and to spell other words in Spanish. So first, we're going to listen to all of these read aloud and hear how these sounds are made. The first time I just want you to listen, okay? Just listen to these and you can follow along. They're going to read the letter and then the word below it. So you can see in general how the sound by itself sounds and then how it sounds when we put it in a word.
Lección preliminar. El abecedario.
A. Alfombra. B. B grande. Bate. C. Cine. D. Dinero. E. Entrada. F. Fruta. G. Gato. H. Helado. I. Iglú. J. Jabón. K. Karate. L. Lápiz. M. Mochila. N. Nariz. Ñ. Ñu. O. Oreja. P. Patines. Q. Queso. R. Regalo. R. Guitarra. S. Sofá. T. Tiza. U. Uvas. V. B chica. Ventana. W. W. Waffle. X. Xilófono. Y. Yogur. Z. Zapato.
Okay, so I don't know about you, but I would find that overwhelming if I were a student. Just hearing them read one time, right? That's a lot. So I actually have a little song for you that is going to help you memorize how these are pronounced, which is going to be important for our next activity. So I want you to memorize these sounds, okay? I have a little YouTube video here we're going to watch together to make sure you know how to do these. So this is a song, and it's going to repeat the letters for you several times, so I want you to repeat them back. So I'll give you an example here. So there, after you hear A, B, C, C, D, E, F, A, I want you to sing it back. So A, B, C, C, D, E, F, A.
A, B, C, D, E, F, A. Hey, H, I, J, K.
Hey, H, I, J, K. Sing it back.
Hey, H, I, J, K. L,
L,
Q-R-R-S-T.
Q, R, R, S, T.
Q-R-R-S-T. W-X.
U, V, W, X.
W-X. Y.
Y,
Z.
Z.
Z. Yo sé el alfabeto. Oh.
And you hear at the end, Yo sé el alfabeto. Ole. Now I know the alphabet. Hey. All right, so we're going to play this again, and I want you to sing as we go to make sure you have a good understanding of these. Okay, so you're going to hear it several times. Just make sure you're repeating it back. This makes a great shower jam, by the way, if you need a way to memorize these.
A, B, C, G, D, E, F, A. A, B, C, G, D, E, F, A. Hey, H, I, J, K. Hey, H, I, J, K. L, L, E, Y, E, Y. N, 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 Y. O, P, Q, R, R, S, T. Q, R, R, S, T. W, X. W-X, Y, Z, Z, yo sé el alfabeto. ¡Ole! A, B, C, J, D, E, F, A, B, C, J, D, E, F, hey, H, I, J, K. Hey, H, I, J, K. L, L, E, Y, E, Y. N, 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 Y. O, P, Q, R, R, S, T. Q, R, R, S, T. W, X. W, X. Y, Z, Z. Yo sé el alfabeto. ¡Ole!
Okay, so hopefully you have a feel of how these sounds work. So we're going to practice these just a little bit here. In this activity, you're going to hear a letter being read aloud. And I want you to write down or keep in your brain or whatever the letter that you hear. Okay, so for example,
Lección preliminar. A responder. Listen to letters of the Spanish alphabet. Write each letter that you hear on a piece of paper and hold it up. 1. L.
so the letter you hear in number 1 is L. L. So what letter should you be writing? L. Yeah, you should be writing an L. L. Okay, keep listening.
2. E.
E. So number 2, you heard E. E. What letter is E? And E is an E. Okay, so the letter E. Be very careful. The sound E in Spanish is an I. So E for the letter E in English, and E for the letter I in English.
3. J.
Jota. What letter should you be writing here for Jota?
4.
A Jota is a J. Jota. Try number 4.
Ñ.
Enye. Enye. And enye is the N with the little squiggly, the tilde above it. Enye. Okay, not to be confused with just plain old N, the regular N.
5. B.
B. The letter you heard here was B, which is a B. A B. Be very careful. B and V sound a lot alike in Spanish. You can hear B and V. They seem very similar there.
6. E.
E. E. All right, so we know that E is not the letter E in English. E should be an I. Careful there.
7. H.
H. My favorite letter, H, is an H. My students a lot of times call me Señor H. Mr. H, Señor H.
8. B grande.
B grande. Okay, so you, by the way, anytime you put grande after something, it makes it big or capital. So B is a plain B, and B grande is a capital B. All right, so those are your letters in that context. We're going to take this and build a little bit now. So in this next activity, you're going to hear someone reading a party list. They're giving you the names of people who are coming, and you're supposed to be writing down the names that you hear. Okay, so let's listen to an example together.
Lección preliminar. Actividad 8. Lista. Listen to someone dictate an invitation list for a party. Write down each name as it is spelled. Modelo. You hear
D A N I E L.
You write Daniel.
So you saw them all written out here. D, A, N, I, E, L. Daniel, or Daniel in English, Daniel. Okay, so I'm going to let this play through all the way, and I want you to give it a shot. Okay, so you're going to listen to how they're spelled, and you're going to write the names that you hear. Okay, so just do your best. Some of these are going to be names you maybe have never heard before, so just do your best.
1. X, I, M, E, N, A.
All right, so in this one, in number 1, you heard X, I, M, E, N, A. So you should have written down X, I, M, E, N, A. Jimena. Okay? All right, let's continue listening and see how you do with the rest of these.
2. G, U, I, L, L, E, R, M, O.
All right, so I want to repeat those for you really fast. So you have G, U, I, L, L, E, R, M, O. That was number 2. Let's do number 3. Keep going. We're going to check these in a minute.
3. A, L, E, J, A, N, D, R, A.
Okay, so in this one you heard A, L, E, J, A, N, D, R, A. Number 4.
4. Y, O, L, A, N, D, A.
Okay, so one more time you heard Y, O, L, A, N, D, A. Number 5.
5. B grande. E, A, T, R, I, Z.
And here you heard B grande, E, A, T, R, I, Z. Number 6.
6. J, O, S, E, F, I, N, A.
All right, so here you heard J, O, S, E, F, I, N, A.
7. H, U, G, O.
Number 7, you heard H, U, G, O.
8. T, O, Ñ, O.
Here you heard T, O, N, O. All right, so you can see the correct answers here written out for you. So number 2, you heard the name Guillermo. Number 3, Alejandra. Number 4, Yolanda. Number 5, Beatriz. Number 6, Josefina. Number 7, Hugo. And number 9, Tonio. Tonio. Okay, so now in an in-person classroom, I would have you partner up with someone and spell your name aloud. So in this case, you don't have a partner, so we can't really do that with a partner, but I will be your partner for the purposes of the activity. I'm going to spell a couple of names for you here, and I want you to see how you do. So none of you guys know my middle name, but you do know my first and last name, so I'm going to spell my middle name for you and see if you can get it, okay? So I'm going to spell it out for you. T, O, D, D. Try one more time. T, O, D, D. Okay, well, you should have written down Todd. Todd on your paper is my middle name. All right, moving on. So next, our learning objective for this next section, I'd like for you to be able to create sentences in Spanish expressing one's origin, your origin, where you're from. And I'd also like for you to be able to identify Spanish-speaking countries from around the world. So you see here a little screenshot of a conversation between Senor Costas, Mr. Costas, and Alicia. And Senor Costas, he starts the conversation, he says, Alicia, ¿de dónde eres? Alicia, where are you from? Or literally, from where are you? You may realize this in English, but it's actually incorrect to end your sentence in a preposition. We say, where are you from? Or where is he at? Those kind of things. That is incorrect English, right? We should say, from where are you? ¿De dónde eres? Alicia responds to his question, where are you from? And she says, soy de Estados Unidos. So, soy de, I am from. Soy, I am, de, from, I am from. And she says, soy de Estados Unidos. I'm from the States United, or we would say the United States, the US. And Alicia asked him, ¿de dónde es usted? Any guesses here on the difference? We had ¿de dónde eres? And ¿de dónde es usted? They both mean where are you from? What's the difference? Yeah, very good. ¿De dónde eres is where are you from informally. And ¿de dónde es usted is where are you from in the formal way. And notice she's using the usted form with him because he's maybe an elder, he's a little older, she wants to show respect to him. And Señor Costas responds, and he also says that soy de Estados Unidos, soy de la Florida. I'm from the US also, I'm from Florida. Okay, so now, as you hear those, I want you to be able to identify some Spanish-speaking countries. So I have a little song for you that is going to help you in identifying these countries. Okay, so let's listen. Again, this makes a wonderful shower jam. Here we go.
México, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panamá, Cuba, República Dominicana, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Perú, Chile, Bolivia, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, España, Guinea Ecuatorial. Son los los 21 países donde hablan español. Más de 500 millones de personas, como tú y como yo. Como tú y como yo.
Okay, so I'm going to play this for you again so you'll of course get to hear it, but it's important to remember everybody hears Spanish and they're like, yeah, they speak Spanish in Mexico, they speak Spanish in Spain. Those are only 2 out of the 21 countries in the world where Spanish is spoken. So as you saw, los 21 países, 21 countries, and over 500 million speakers. So it's important to realize that. So let's keep listening.
México, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panamá, Cuba, República Dominicana, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Perú, Chile, Bolivia, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, España, Guinea Ecuatorial. Son los 21 países donde hablan español. Más de 500 millones de personas, como tú y como yo. Como tú y como yo.
All right, so fortunately, if you were in an in-person class, I would continue to play that for you repetitively until you knew all those songs, but I'm not going to do that to you right now because we don't have time for that. But as we keep moving, again, you see here a map with some of these countries we've been talking about, and it gives you the model Guillermo in number 7. And as you look over here at number 7, it is pointing to the country of Uruguay. Uruguay. Right here with Chile and Argentina, Uruguay. So we need to write a sentence that says Guillermo is from Uruguay. Guillermo es de Uruguay. Let's do another one together. In number 1, you see Andrea, and it's pointing to country number 5, which is Bolivia. So in this case, we want to write a sentence that says that Andrea is from Bolivia. We're going to say Andrea es de Bolivia. All right, we'll do just one more. In number 2 here, we are pointing to country number 8, which is right here. And we want to write a sentence to say that Tomás, my cat, Tomás is from country number 8. In this case, Tomás es de, and that's Chile. Tomás es de Chile. Okay, I want you to take a moment and pause your audio, and I'd like for you to give numbers 3 through 8 a try for me, please. You can unpause when you're ready. All right, now that you've had a second to try these, let's take a look. In number 3, we see Nicolás. Nicolás is from Peru, country number 4 here. And we wrote a sentence that said, Nicolás es de Perú. Number 4, we see Sofía. And pointing to country number 2, Sofía is from Colombia. So we're going to say Sofía es de Colombia. Number 5, Veronica in country number 3. Verónica es de Ecuador. Number 6, Mateo. In country number 9, Mateo es de Argentina. By the way, Mateo is my name in Spanish, Matthew. Mateo es de Argentina. Number 7, Consuelo. And we're pointing over here to country number 1. Consuelo es de Venezuela. And numero 8, Pablo. And we're pointing here to country number 6. Pablo es de Paraguay. Paraguay. All right, cool beans. So again, we're continuing on with our learning objective of being able to create sentences expressing origin and identifying Spanish-speaking countries from around the globe. So if we were in person right now, I'd be asking you to engage in a speaking activity with one of your classmates. As you can see here with the model of Colombia, partner 1 would ask, ¿De dónde eres? Where are you from? And partner 2 would respond using the country in the model and say, Soy de Colombia. I'm from Colombia. So, ¿de dónde eres? Soy de Venezuela. ¿De dónde eres? Soy de Panamá. It's important that you realize, ¿de dónde eres? Where are you from? And soy de, I'm from. Okay? You can turn these statements into a question as well. So look at this sentence that Beto es de Paraguay. Beto is from Paraguay. And then you just take the period out and put question marks around it, and you turn it into a question. So instead of stating that Beto is from Paraguay, we're asking now, Beto es de Paraguay? Is Beto from Paraguay? And in English or in Spanish that's spoken, you can just tell from the intonation of your voice. Beto es de Paraguay. Beto es de Paraguay? Like you can just hear the question in there. Whereas in written speech, you have to look for either the period or the question marks. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay, our next learning objective is talking about los números. I don't know about you. Some of you guys probably already know your numbers from 1 through 10. I know we started learning in my school Spanish in like kindergarten, so I kind of already knew 0 through 10, or maybe from watching Dora, la Exploradora. However, I will go over these to make sure you know these. One of our learning objectives is to recall those numbers from 1 through 10, but also to be able to exchange phone numbers in Spanish. So we're going to do a few activities with you. So you never know. You might find yourself in a foreign country and you need to get that hot girl or that hot guy's digits. So it's important that you know how to do this, right? So here you see Esteban again, and Esteban's asking the question, ¿Cuál es tu número de teléfono? I want to make sure I say those again. ¿Cuál es tu número, number, and número de teléfono? What's your phone number? Teléfono is a phone. Be careful, it's not a teléfono, okay? Teléfono. And she responds here and she says, oh, mi número de teléfono es 764-9081. And she reads out the numbers. So let's go through these. You have 0, 0, 0, almost like 0, but written with a C, 0. Uno, 1. You've all probably played the game Uno before, the card game. So 0, 1, 2. Repeat with me. 0, 1, 2. Tres is 3. Cuatro, 4. 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, and 10, 10, 10. In this photo, you see two different people speaking, and this time the man asks in a polite way, he says, Perdón, ¿cuál es su número de teléfono? Excuse me, what is your phone number? And he's using a more formal tone in this case. Maybe in a professional situation. You can see he looks like he's working here on his computer. And she says back, oh, mi número de teléfono es 253-7109. And in this case, she tends to be, he's showing respect using su número de teléfono, as opposed to before where we said tu número de teléfono in the informal form. All right, so you're going to hear some numbers read aloud. If you hear an even number, I want you to raise your right hand. And if you're an odd number, I want you to raise your left hand. Okay, let's do a few of these.
Lección preliminar. A responder. Listen to these numbers. If you hear an even number, raise your right hand. If you hear an odd number, raise your left hand. A. Ocho.
Ocho. All right, ocho is an even number. We should be raising our right hand. 8.
B. Cinco.
Cinco. Cinco, 5 is an odd number. We should be raising our left hand.
C. Nueve.
Nueve. Nueve, 9 is an odd number. We should be raising our left hand.
D. Seis.
Seis. Seis. 6 is an even number. We should be raising our right hand. Seis.
E. Cuatro.
Cuatro. Cuatro is an even number. Again, we should be raising our right hand. Cuatro. 4.
F. Uno.
Uno. Uno means 1. Uno is an odd number. We should be raising our left hand.
G. Diez.
G. Diez. Diez is 10. 10. We should be raising our right hand. That is an even number. All right, so hopefully you feel pretty good about these. All right, this is the hard part. I'm going to make you do some math. Are you ready? All right, so it's going to give you a math problem, and you need to write it out in Spanish. So in this case, in the model, you're given 2 plus 4 equals 6. Now, I want you to know plus in Spanish is más, M-A-S, más, like Taco Bell's model that you should live más. Más is plus. Menos is minus. And we're going to use the word son for equals in this case. So in this math problem, you have 2 plus 4, so we would say 2, dos, plus, más, cuatro, 4, and then son equals 6. So dos más cuatro son 6. 2 plus 4 is 6. Let's do another one together. Here in number 1, you see 8 minus 3. So we're going to say that 8 in this case is, good, ocho minus menos 3, tres. So ocho menos 3, 8 minus 3, son 5. Ocho menos 3 son 5. All right, I have a few here that I'd like for you to try. Numbers 2 through 9. If you would, please take a moment, pause your audio, and give the rest of these a try. All right, now that you've had a second to try these, let's take a look. Number 2 says 4 plus 4. Cuatro más cuatro son ocho. Cuatro más cuatro son ocho. 4 plus 4 is 8. Number 3, 3 plus 6. Tres más seis son nueve. Tres más seis. 3 and 6 son nueve is 9. Number 4, 7 minus 7. Ooh, that's going to give us 0. So siete menos siete es 0. 0. Number 5, uno más 9, 1 plus 9. Uno más 9 son 10. Number 6, 5 menos 2 son 3. So 5 minus 2 is 3. 5 menos 2 son 3. Number 7, 6 menos 5 es 1. So 6 minus 5 is 1. Number 8, 7 plus 0 is still 7. Siete más 0 son 7. And number 9, 10 minus 8. 10 menos 8 son 2. 10 minus 8 is 2. All right, so hopefully you're feeling better about these numbers. Now, in a classroom setting, something we could do that's very fun with this that I like to do is I put you in groups and I let you play telephone, where one person at the front of the row whispers their phone number to the person behind them and passes it back. But unfortunately, here in this online environment, we can't do that right this moment, but one day. All right, so I think you have an understanding